Welcome to AITS podcast on AI security. In this episode, we will look into what is exfiltration and impact on AI systems. Let's get started.
Ever notice how in those heist movies, they're always after something flashy? Diamonds, cash, you name it.
Right.
Well, our deep dive today, it's about a whole different breed of heist. We're talking about stealing the brains right out of AI systems.
Literally ripping the intelligence out of them.
And we're digging into, get this, Module 9, exfiltration and impact, which, by the way, is way more intense than it sounds.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, the stuff they're swiping makes diamonds look like cheap dudes.
No kidding. So less Ocean's 11, more like a digital brain drain.
Exactly. It's not just about grabbing data. It's about stealing the intelligence itself. Think blueprints for a self-driving car, or the logic behind, like, medical diagnoses.
Okay, so that's some scary high-stakes stuff.
Yeah.
But how do these AI thieves even pull it off? It's not like they're sneaking in with crowbars and ski masks.
More like lines of code and hidden servers.
Okay, walk me through it. How does this actually go down?
Picture this. You've got these automated scripts, like digital spies, just silently working in the background, siphoning off data without a trace.
So we're talking about tools like, what, R-clone? Wasn't that a file-sharing thing?
It is. But in this context, it can be programmed to automatically copy sensitive files and smuggle them out to a remote server. And it's not just rclone. Tools like wget are also used.
So no alarms blaring, just poof, data's gone.
Pretty much.
And I see this Module 9 thing mentions something called PowerShell and Bash scripts. I'm guessing those aren't just for automating your emails.
You're telling me. These scripts, they're like the Swiss Army knives of IT. Super versatile, used for legitimate stuff all the time. But of course, like any powerful tool, in the wrong hands.
They can be weaponized.
Exactly. And because they're so common, they can slip past security measures unnoticed, perfect for data exfiltration.
A wolf in sheep's clothing, digitally speaking. Okay, so that's some sneaky stuff. But then there's this whole ML inference APIs thing. APIs, I get, they're like messengers between systems, but how do they play into this whole AI heist scenario?
Think of it this way. You've got this massive library of information, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
The ML inference API is like the librarian. You ask it questions, it retrieves the relevant info. But here's the catch. A skilled attacker, they can craft these really sneaky requests, basically tricking the librarian into handing over confidential information.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Give me an example. Let's say we're talking about, I don't know, an e-commerce site that uses AI. What would this kind of digital interrogation look like in that case?
Okay, so imagine this online store. They use AI to recommend products based on your past purchases, right?
Makes sense.
Now, an attacker could use this ML inference API to access not just your data, but aggregated data on customer buying habits.
So they're not just walking out with a shopping cart full of stuff. They're walking out with the entire store's playbook.
Exactly. And that information, that's gold to competitors, marketing firms, you name it. They're making off with the store's most valuable asset. It's customer insights.
So instead of just stealing physical goods, they're stealing the intelligence that drives the entire business. And I'm guessing this isn't just an e-commerce thing, right? This kind of vulnerability, it's everywhere. Expert speaker.
Absolutely. It's not limited to e-commerce at all. We're talking about AI being everywhere now, right? The cloud, physical servers, even people's homes. Exactly. And that's part of the problem. All those benefits of AI being so widespread, it also means more vulnerabilities, more points of entry for these bad actors.
Okay, so let's break down those entry points. We hear the cloud thrown around a lot these days. What makes it such a prime target for this AI exfiltration?
Okay, so picture the cloud like a massive digital city. Buildings everywhere, each one holding tons of valuable data.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Now imagine some of those buildings have their doors wide open, no security, no guards, nothing.
A free-for-all.
Basically. And that's what we're talking about with misconfigured cloud storage. It happens way more often than you'd think. And when we're talking about cloud-based AI, one of the biggest weak points, AWS S3 buckets.
No, those are. Refresh my memory.
Think of them like giant digital warehouses, holding all sorts of data. But if they're not set up right, securely, it's like leaving all the doors wide open for anyone to just stroll in.
And I'm betting there are plenty of digital thieves out there with their lock picks ready.
You got that right. There are programs out there constantly scanning for these openings. It's a never-ending cat and mouse game, security versus exploitation. But it's not just the cloud, right? We've also got those AI systems that aren't floating out there in the ether. The on-premises ones, tucked away in offices, server rooms, all that.
You'd think those would be tougher to crack. Physical security, alarms, the whole 9 yards. But this Module 9 thing, it paints a different picture. It even mentions this NetCat thing. Sounds more like a brand of cat food than a hacking tool to me.
Right. Well, NetCat might not be a household name, but it's a pretty powerful tool in the wrong hands. It can be used for legit purposes too, but when it's used maliciously, it's basically like creating a back door into a whole network.
So someone sitting in a basement somewhere could bypass all those fancy security systems and get into the network remotely.
Exactly. And once they're in, they can do some real damage. Copy sensitive files, install malware, you name it, all while flying under the radar.
Okay, that just gave me chills. But of all the things we've talked about so far, the whole insider threat thing, that's what really freaks me out. Is it really that common? Employees gone rogue.
It's more common than people realize, and it's not always some malicious plan. Sometimes it's carelessness, not paying attention, not following protocol. Maybe an employee clicks a phishing link without thinking, downloads a program that's got malware hidden in it.
It's like they say, the only truly secure system is one that's completely offline, buried underground, guarded by a SWAT team. And even then. So even with the best tech, it often comes down to human error.
You said it.
But we've talked about the how for a while now. Let's get into the why. Why should people even care about all of this? What's the big deal if some code or data goes missing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets to the heart of why AI security is so crucial these days. We're way past hypotheticals now. These aren't just what-if scenarios. These attacks, they have real-world consequences. Big ones.
So we're not just talking about some lines of code going missing. It's about how that impacts everyday life.
100%. Think about systems that are used for medical diagnoses, financial trading, self-driving cars, even things like, what you see on your social media feeds, all powered by AI. Now imagine those systems compromised.
That's not a good picture.
Not even a little bit.
So what are the biggest risks here? Give me the rundown.
Let's start with data manipulation. Remember how we were talking about AI models being trained on huge sets of data?
Right, like learning by example.
Exactly. Now imagine someone intentionally injects bad data into that training process. It's like a virus, basically. It can mess up the whole system from the inside out.
So not just stealing data, but like poisoning the well.
That's a good way to put it. And the impact can be scary. Think about facial recognition systems used by law enforcement. If that data is skewed, it could lead to wrongful arrests, putting innocent people in danger.
Okay, so give me some real-world examples. What kind of AI horror stories should we be aware of?
All right, well, let's start with a blast from the past. Remember Tay?
Tay, as in the chatbot.
Yeah, but not the one everyone's talking about now. I'm talking about Microsoft's early attempt. The one that, went a little off the rails.
Oh, right. Wasn't that a whole PR nightmare?
You could say that, but it's also a perfect example of what happens when you basically unleash an AI system without, teaching it some manners first. See, they designed Tay to learn from interacting with people on Twitter.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me people on Twitter, of all places, were able to mess with a multi-million-dollar AI project?
Believe it or not, yeah. People figured out they could manipulate Tay by feeding it all this, let's just say, not so nice language. And since Tay learned by mimicking what it was exposed to,
it didn't take long for things to go downhill.
Understatement. It was basically a crash course in the dark side of the internet, with a chatbot as the star pupil.
So what do? Just pull the plug?
Pretty much. Microsoft shut it down within a day, but the damage was done. Huge embarrassment for them and a wake-up call for everyone else about, the potential for AI to be manipulated.
And not exactly the kind of going viral you want. Okay, so what's the next cautionary tale on our list?
Let's switch gears from the digital world to something a little closer to, real life. The Uber self-driving car accident back in 2018.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was a big one. Definitely made people think twice about those autonomous vehicles.
And for good reason. It wasn't just a fender bender, This was a tragedy that really brought up some serious questions about the safety of AI systems. Essentially, an Uber test car, one of theirs with self-driving tech, it hit and killed a pedestrian in Arizona.
Yeah, I remember that. Really tragic. But how does it tie into AI exfiltration, what we've been talking about today?
So it wasn't a case of hacking or anything like that, but when they investigated, it turned out that even though the car's sensors, they picked up on the pedestrian, the AI system itself, it didn't register her as a person crossing the road.
So a failure to understand what it was seeing.
Exactly, a fatal one in this case. And while this specific incident wasn't caused by some external attack, it just goes to show how crucial it is to have really, really thorough testing, safety protocols, and, a good grasp on the limitations of AI.
A stark reminder that AI, as amazing as it can be, it's still got a long way to go.
No doubt about it. And the more we depend on it, the higher the stakes get.
Which is why these conversations are so important. We need to be aware of the risks, not just the potential.
I couldn't agree more. It's on all of us, developers, policymakers, researchers, even everyday users like us. We've got a role to play in making sure AI is used safely and responsibly.
Well said. So the big takeaway here, it's not just about some theoretical threat. AI exfiltration and all its consequences, they're very real, very present dangers.
100%. And it's not even just about protecting data or algorithms anymore. It's about, protecting our future.
Absolutely. Well, that's a thought-provoking note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AITS Podcast on AI Security. If you would like to learn more or would like to have a session for your team, please drop us an email on training@alasad.cloud. Learn more about us on our website, alasad.cloud, that is ALASAD, CLOUD.